Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 914. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today is May 13th, 2025.
All right, welcome to another episode of Anglican Unscripted. This is where Kevin and George sit down, and generally, this is our happy place. We sit down and we get to talk about the fun stories going on around the world, intergalactic breaking news, like we're going to talk about a new pope, and some other strange stories will occur to us today. Sometimes the news out there irks us a little bit, and that may be expressed a little in today's episode. Forgive us now. Just right now, I forgive Kevin and George. There, get covered it. Before we get too far into the episode, like this episode. It's that little thumb thing. You click on that. If you're not yet subscribed to the episode, and 51% of you have not subscribed to Anglican Unscripted yet, shame on you. Click that red rectangle, up pops the bell, and you will be instantly notified every time there's a new episode. Go to the comment section on YouTube, comment away. We want to hear your opinion about these stories as well as our own. Anything else? Oh, share. It's time to let your friends know that you are an unscripted viewer. You can't hide it anymore. George, how you doing this week?
This week, I'm great. I've got a Kairos weekend starting tomorrow. Uh-oh. And work will be at Sumter Correctional Institute, set up Wednesday. Then we start all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's down by my winter home in Webster there.
Yeah. So. Kairos is a wonderful one. Actually, the prison's right next to the Florida National Cemetery. So if you're a veteran and you die between Tampa and Gainesville, that's where we're popping you. And it's a wonderful ministry. But we've delayed in starting filming today. We were originally going to do it at 8:30. And it's 2 hours later, and the reason why is that I have been praying because I have been so very angry today at things in the news.
Sure.
And usually I'm able to touch, but hopefully I will not make an ass out of myself and allow this anger to erupt in our show today.
Well, I mean, that's what the bleep button is for in most YouTube shows. But I mean,
it's for coughing, it's for sneezing, it's for burping. It's not for George using expletives and saying libelous things. Be
slow to anger, they say in Scripture. Now, but that we are participants in the news that we cover. Since 1993, I have attended the Episcopal Anglican Communion. As a Christian. My wife and I have been going to church in that realm for many years. I was a senior warden since I was 25, on and off through the years. I'm invested in this. I ran the Connecticut 6. I run Anglican TV, Unscripted, and Anglican Inc. for a dozen years, 15 years now, too. I'm involved in the news.
We're pushing 20.
Oh my God. That's where the hair went. So we are involved personally in what we report. So it's okay if we become emotional or a little distressed or a little angry in some of the stories. Well, the biggest story this week is the new pope. We're not angry about that.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
Boy, you guys are really, this Leo guy must have really got under your collar there, George. No. We'll get to the anger stories later. But let's start off with a celebration within the Roman Catholic Church. We started out our last episode talking about the conclave, talking about who the candidates were, and you could have knocked my socks off when I heard in Latin, Cardinal Roberto, what's his last name again? I forget already.
Provost.
Provost is the new Pope. And I'm like, ooh, who? What? They could have said Cardinal Calvin Robinson is the new pope. I go, whoa, what's going on here? So, I mean,
let's not mix our stories, Kevin.
No, let's not mix the stories. So, I was a little surprised, and I knew he was an American. I go, great, we have our first American. What doesn't make any sense? It wasn't on our radar. It wasn't on any of the news platforms I saw, and I know he was a newish cardinal to boot. So let's back up the story and talk a little bit about the Cardinal Bob made Pope Leo.
Cardinal Bob. Well, just a little bit of background. We have his biography from the Vatican website up on the Anglican Inc., so you can go into the details of his life. But he's a Chicago native. Studied at Villanova University, which was used to be near 5 miles from my old home in Philadelphia suburbs.
Yeah.
Know it quite well. He entered the Order of St. Augustine, OSA, and has had a ministry divided between Chicago and Peru, and was a bishop in a northern Peruvian diocese, a seminary dean. And 2 years ago, he was brought to the Vatican by Francis to be the head of the dicastery, or the Congregation of Bishops. So he's sort of the man who runs the bishop's office. Mm-hmm. And he's an American. And he also holds a Peruvian passport because he spent much of his adult life in Peru. When he was, he's 69, so he's youngish as these people go. When he was elected, my initial reactions were, okay, I want to see the people's responses. So I follow Father James Martin, the editor of America magazine. He's a Jesuit. He's also the leader of what we would call in the Episcopal Church the gay lobby, pushing recognition of all that stuff. Martin said this was amazing. He was wonderful. And I thought, somebody who, if he tells me the sun is coming up, I'm going to look out the window before I agree with him, tells me he's happy, I was a little concerned. But then Pope Benedict's secretary, George Gershwin, who is very conservative and who Francis has persecuted for his conservatism, said, this is a fantastic appointment. So we have liberals and conservatives applauding the election of Pope Leo. Now, apart from his being a Chicago White Sox fan, his brother tells me, it's not me, but his brother tells the world.
Yeah.
He has a low profile as these things go. He had some stuff 12 years ago that were very conservative on the marriage and homosexuality issues. He also retweeted a tweet of another cardinal who was critical of Donald Trump, but he didn't write it. So in other words, there's no smoking gun. Now, there's some stories coming out. There's one in the Guardian that while he was in Peru, there was a clergy crisis and he may have mishandled it. It's not that he's not Cardinal McCarrick where he's the clergy crisis, but he may not have acted as swiftly as other people would have wanted. He may be more of a Steve Ruck problem rather than a Cardinal McCarrick problem. But again, nobody is saying this is major, and everybody knew about this. So the little gossip that we sort of read and pick up from the various things is that he was the candidate of the center and the right. And the candidate of the left was Cardinal Parolin, the Secretary of State, the one who put together the China deal. Mm-hmm. And the center and the conservatives, from Cardinal Burke to the far right, not far right, but to the conservative side, to the center, who want to sort of get the Catholic Church out of the ditch that Francis drove it in, some claim.
Backed it into, yes.
He was the man.
Yeah.
Now, so praise God, if this is, Kevin, you and I were talking ahead of time that nobody is perfect for the job that they're selected. They grow into the Holy Spirit takes them to the place that they need to be a good religious.
There is no
leader.
Greater example of characters in Scripture who are completely unqualified when called. Mm-hmm. Moses, You go through the whole list. Okay.
Peter, James, John, disciples.
Whom is qualified? None. And that is, you have to really understand. We can complain and judge up front, and we're doing it wrong. We have to wait until something happens and that there's a trajectory. Right now, we see no trajectory from the Roman Catholic Church under his leadership. When we start to see that, we can, make comments and encourage or discourage as it happens. But for now, it's an open slate, as the kingdom likes. It likes a repentant, clean slate. Let's start over, wipe it clean, and I hope that for Pope Leo, and we shall see.
Now, some people are going a little too deep in trying to discern things. There's a little thing where he was being greeted by a crowd coming through. He was passing through a crowd of groups on two sides of him.
Oh, the
and
rainbow
he was
flag.
like moving from side to side, and a group of gay Catholics had a rainbow flag, and just before he got to them, he moved to the other side to say hello. And after he passed the rainbow flag, he moved back. Now, it could be happenstance, or it could just be smart. No, this is not something I want my first day to be pictured with.
Yeah.
The things that'll sort to tell is who are the people he appoints into jobs. Personnel is policy, they like to say.
That's right.
Donald Trump was a great guy, but his first administration, he just brought the deep state with him because he didn't know anybody. He was an outsider.
He didn't know any better. He thought, he
didn't know any better.
Yeah.
He trusted these people, and they stabbed him in the back from the first day.
Mm-hmm.
So Provost has got a long time, and so he's probably going to be careful in who he puts in positions of authority. So he's told the guys who are currently holding positions, okay, just, cool your jets. We're not going to fire everybody the first day, but he will be bringing his own people, and we can sort of get a hint of where he's going with the sort of people he brings in to implement policy, implement doctrine, discipline, reform. Is he going to go with the synodal way, being full Episcopalian like Pope Francis, or is he going to sort of, we could tweak it here and there and not make the mistakes the Episcopal Church has made and the Anglicans make?
Yeah, well, is he a person who believes that the Roman Catholic Church needs to be reformed, which Pope Francis did believe, which Benedict did not believe? So where does he fall within that realm? And we'll see when he starts appointing people. So
our friend, I've been exchanging emails with Gavin Ashenden, who is over the moon. And Gavin's quite excited because he's not an enemy of the Latin Mass. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, he was mean to Donald Trump. Well, Gavin, being English, really doesn't care.
Well, but
for some reason, the Latin Mass is more important to Catholics than Trump tweets. I just don't get it.
Well, I don't mind Trump tweets either. I mean, the role of clergy and leaders of the church is to point out hypocrisy in the secular world, and Trump is not beyond that. As far as pointing out, he does have some flaws. There are some people who think he has no flaws. I think he has some flaws. So I don't mind a pope or a cardinal trying to hold Trump accountable. It is amazing, though, how often that they are off their own mark when they make that comment. But I don't mind it. All right, shall we move on to some other news here?
Well, sort of related.
Yeah.
The presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, Sean Rowe, has been tapped to lead the Anglican delegation to Leo's first public mass in St. Peter's Square, which I think is the 17th.
Well, that's cool. I saw this breaking news on only one website, Anglican.Inc. How did we get that story?
Well, friends, some people sometimes wonder, well, how do you know all this stuff, George? Are you that well connected? I'd like to think so, but no. Sometimes it's dumb luck.
Nerd.
I subscribe to most every diocesan newsletter that I get, and I just scan them every morning when I read them. And the Diocese of Newark said, Well, we've got to change 150th anniversary celebration. We were going to have Sean Rowe come, but instead we're going to bring Michael Curry. Sean Rowe apologizes, but he's been asked to lead the Anglican delegation to the Pope's first inaugural Mass. Okay. Oh. And I checked with New York. Yeah, that's right. New York hasn't put anything out on that yet, so you can't read this in Episcopal News Service yet. But because I got it in writing, boom, I ran with it. And so Sean Rowe will be the face of Anglicanism. I'm trying to be very good, Kevin. Satan, get behind me. I'm not going to be wicked yet.
Well, I mean, if we could have Michael Curry do the wedding for Harry and Meghan, we can certainly send Sean Rowe to the first Mass of the Pope. Come on.
I don't really care who goes, but it's related to our anger stories later.
Here, this is evidence the see is empty. And the sea will remain empty for a long time when we get down to story number, whatever, 7 or 8 or 9. Yeah, I mean, the sea is empty. In mere 48 hours, the cardinals gather and they vote a new guy in as Pope. I would say, the UK has gone through 16,000 interviews or something like that. 11,000 interviews to find the next Archbishop of Canterbury, and we're still nothing. So we'll get to that story next.
We'll get there.
Okay. All right. If you woke up this morning and you found out the biggest news is Calvin Robinson again, you're right. You probably watched Anglican Inc. and saw that Calvin Robinson has been licensed by Bishop Ray Sutton of the REC, Reformed Episcopal Church. And you're going to find out over the next couple of days that a lot of people love this and some people don't love this. And we got a press release immediately this morning from the office of Archbishop Steve Wood saying he doesn't love it. Now, I want to go back in time. Let's go back in time to episode 15 of Anglican Unscripted, George. That is when we broke the story about the hubbub within the EMEA. When things were starting to flow out that there was trouble down there, we reported on it. EMEA attacked us viciously and said, you can't listen to these guys. They don't know what we're talking about. Well, and we didn't know what we're talking about. That became the story because we were correct what we're talking about, even though we're kind of just poking around to see what was down there. And for the first time, we had a controversy at the diocesan levels within the ACNA, and I wanted to see how the bishops are going to respond to this. And there was no press release attacks between Archbishop Duncan and EMEA. There was no bishops doing the verbal back and forth on social media. It was all kept quiet and kept godly and kept in a different realm. We couldn't figure out, well, why isn't Bishop Duncan going after Chuck Murphy here? What's going on? Why isn't Chuck Murphy
going after Bishop Duncan?
We're going out. You went after us, no problem. But so there's always been this degree of understanding amongst bishops that we won't do it in the media. If we have a problem with one another, we'll cover it in a godly way. And we won't do it in the media. And that has stood until just recently. This morning. Okay.
This morning.
So you read the press release. What do you think?
Well, let's back up to speak to the cause of this morning's press release. Mm-hmm. We've reported extensively on Calvin Robinson's contretemps with the Anglican Catholic Church, where his bishop smacked him down for Calvin's actions at the March for Life in Washington, mm-hmm. where Calvin, in sort of jokingly, and it was jokingly if you watch the film, follows Elon Musk's supposed Nazi salute. Mm-hmm. One of the great hoaxes of the mainstream media. Of course, Elon Musk is no Nazi, and of course he was not giving a Nazi salute. But you have the people with Trump derangement syndrome believe, some to this day believe this, just ludicrous stuff. Well, Calvin was smacked down by his bishop, and then the bishops started to change the story. Oh, it's because he's an anti-Semite, because he had a podcast where one of the people on his podcast said outrageous things, and Calvin did immediately smack him down for saying things that were unkind towards Jews. Long and the shorter it was, Calvin was shafted, and he lost his license in the Anglican Catholic Church, and even at one point he lost his visa. I mean, it was just.
But that's not the first time he's been shafted. I mean, he has never had a good and faithful bishop to serve under.
Yeah, when he was first screwed by Bishop Sarah Mullally, who refused to ordain him after he completed seminary for the Diocese of London because Calvin wasn't the right sort of black man for the Church of England. He wasn't the Uncle Tom that the liberals need in the Church of England, the modern version of Step and Fetch It, who'll do what the liberal masters say. Calvin had his own mind, which is something a minority may not have in the Church of England.
Very articulate.
And so he was able, though, to be ordained to the diaconate by the Free Church of England, which is wonderful. But the problem with the Free Church of England is its bishop, John Fenwick, has a habit of destroying clergy. From Brett Murphy forward, the high flyers who have gone into the Free Church of England are out quickly because Fenwick is not a good bishop. He doesn't have, and I say this not in any personal characterization, but he does not have the charism of episcopacy that allows him to support, love, and nurture his clergy and congregation.
And that slow to anger thing that's mentioned in the Bible, not there. Yeah. So
Calvin then is rescued by the Nordic Catholic Church, which is a church in relationship with the Diocese of the Union of Scranton, the Old Catholics, and he's made a priest. And Calvin is offered a position in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he leaves the Nordic Catholic Church, and the Nordic Catholic Church is a bit put out because they wanted him to stick around a bit longer, but they couldn't really offer him the job the way that the going parish could in the U.S. And at the same time, this is when Tommy Robinson's being jailed on political charges, and Calvin had his back and forth with GB News and the Ofsted. Calvin is a colorful political commentator. He's always been that. Well, Calvin comes to the U.S. We have the blow up over the fake allegations of Nazi salutes, and anti-Semitism. Oh, we forgot the little pit stop at Mere Anglicanism in Charleston, where Calvin set the world on fire by attacking the Reformation martyrs and fathers and women clergy, which you just don't do in Charleston. I'm sorry. You could do it in Quincy, but you don't do it in Charleston. And we had the Bishop of the Gulf Atlantic saying something unwise. He later apologized for it. He was speaking in heat, but, it looked like the Protestant wing of the ACNA were glad to see Calvin not in the ACNA, going to the Anglican Catholic Church. Calvin's at a loose end. His parish has withdrawn from the Anglican Catholic Church with their property, which they're allowed to do. And over the week, was it last night? Sunday night? Monday morning? Jeff Walton posted a picture of a license given by Ray Sutton to Calvin in the Reformed Episcopal Church. Now, I've liked to check these things.
We've been burned before.
We've been burned before. And unfortunately, on Monday, Ray Sutton was at a clergy conference in the morning, so I wrote to Calvin and I said, what can you tell me? And he got back to me later that night, said, yeah, it's true. It's a temporary license. My parish I'm not in the REC, and my parish is not in the REC, but Bishop Sutton is going to give me temporary episcopal oversight. And that license under the canons lasts a year. Well, my parish decides, where they want to go. And I thanked him for the information. I was thinking, man, this is wonderful. Because Calvin's problem has been that from the beginning, he's had crappy bishops. He's one of the most articulate, intelligent apologists out there for the Christian faith, but he's just not had a good episcopal mentor, that, in my opinion.
But that's true. But one of the problems is when you don't have a good bishop, we don't really know what the problem is. Okay, the problem could be Calvin. I find that highly unlikely. I've had long discussions with him and a couple interviews on Anglican Unscripted. But if you don't have a good bishop and a good mentor and somebody who's going to hold you in a realm of accountability as a bishop should, then you're going to do things that the world and your enemies will be able to use against you. And
Ray Sutton is probably the brightest bulb in the ACNA chandelier bishops.
Yeah, with reason, intellect, and logic, absolutely.
This is someone, and I was really happy for Calvin because here is a man who can serve as a father in God, who when Calvin gets a little too Calvinish, not Calvinistic, because I don't think that'll happen, but Calvinish. Ray Sutton privately can pull him back and give him the counsel and godly direction that a man in his 30s needs from a man I don't know how old Ray is, late 60s.
Yeah, late 60s, maybe 70s.
So this is a win-win situation, in my thinking. Good for Calvin. Praise God for Ray Sutton, who, this is a time-consuming job. It's like somebody coming to you in your parish, say, I need your help with these emotional, pastoral, spiritual issues. When somebody does that, you just can't say, okay, Friday at 2:15. It's a relationship that is being formed. So Ray Sutton has been willing to put the time and spiritual energy into nurturing Calvin. He's not just handing him a piece of paper.
No, but let's back up. If it doesn't work under Ray Sutton, then the bishop wasn't the issue.
Right.
Okay, I mean, what an opportunity to serve under a godly, faithful bishop. But if you can't make it work here, then the problem probably isn't the bishops that you previously served under. Let's be honest about it. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Calvin, a great opportunity for the REC, a great opportunity for Bishop Sutton, and a great opportunity for the ACNA. But this will identify any issues.
And Sarah Mullally, John Fennick, and is it Mark Haverland? I forget the ACC bishop.
Like, yeah.
3 duds. Mm-hmm. 3 people who I do not put in the first rank or tier of, men and women of God, godly men and women. Well, so I do think it's right. And with Calvin, he does have some rough edges that could be filed down, and also some gifts that can be nurtured and nourished. And he didn't have any of those 3 bishops were completely unable to meet the challenge.
So let's go to the press release right now from Archbishop Steve Wood of the ACNA, where he says in a couple paragraphs down, I am concerned to have the Anglican Church of North America affiliated with a leader whose public comments and persona consistently fail to exhibit the love and grace of Jesus Christ. I have concerns about Robinson's ability to uphold the full commitment of our Anglican tradition and his ability to model Christ-like virtues of peace, patience, gentleness, godliness, and love. And he goes on. So Steve clearly has an opinion of who Calvin is, and is writing this in a very public way. It's on Anglican.inc if you want to read it.
This is one of the issues I became very angry with. Mm-hmm. and I have to choose my words carefully because I want to
Not be bleeped.
news-driven, not be bleeped. This letter was a mistake.
Uh-huh.
It was an error. It was an error. First off, just some of the things. There are clergy in the C4SO and a few other places
Who deserve this type of letter.
who deserve this type of letter.
Yes.
Calvin does not deserve this type of letter. Nor does any clergy person, not directly member of Steve Wood's own diocese. Steve Woods has no business writing this letter about a priest in another diocese.
He's writing it as the Archbishop, but yeah, I get your.
He still has no business writing about an individual clergy person under the authority of another, because what he's doing is he's whacking Ray Sutton over the head, saying, "You stupid idiot! Why did you do this?"
Mm-hmm.
Steve Woods made a mistake. Woods made a mistake, and I'm choosing my words carefully because I want to use expletives. Along the lines of how could you be so damn stupid?
You can't say that.
But I can't say that because this is a knee-jerk. This does not come off as considered. This doesn't come off as wise. This does not come off as irenic. This does not build the unity of the ACNA in any way, shape, or form. What it does is that is almost written as if, here I have a loud, noisy group within my constituency who don't like Calvin's ultramontane Catholicism and don't like his stance on women. So I'm going to placate the Protestant group and I'm going to placate the feminist group or the women's group.
The ACNA 2 groups. I know.
Yeah.
And so...
and so I had to pray for about an hour to be... and I don't want to come off as a hypocritical by mentioning that out loud, but this is a major error, and it could very well start the unraveling because, as you mentioned, Kevin, this is the first time, apart from disciplinary instances where canonical charges are brought, this is the first time that over pure politics, an archbishop has pissed on from a great height one of his bishops.
And a clergy.
Now there are ACNA bishops who are not too bright, who are not first team. Not even they would be treated by their primate this way.
Oh, no.
This is really bad.
Well, what's bad about it? It's bad in many realms because Steve Woods is addressing something in an emotional way here. And there's obviously some anger here, and we've had this anger today. I mean, we had to back up and make sure that we don't respond in the same type of emotional, angry way that other people have, and back up
let me tell an alleged story.
Okay.
Yeah, you can bleep all of it if you want to.
We'll see. Go.
Allegedly. And maybe this is just a fable. Ray Sutton, if you step back from this letter, is basically being accused of fomenting division within the ACNA by bringing on a controversial cleric and giving him episcopal oversight. This same man allegedly was elected presiding bishop, archbishop of the ACNA, but because he would not countenance women clergy, other ACNA bishops had a hissy fit, and he stepped back and allowed Foley Beach to be elected. So
that's the rumor. That's the
rumor. We weren't in the room.
We weren't in the room. Okay.
And of course, this may have just been the last minute final voting, and if you allow your name to go to the final round, I'm going to do a stink. We don't know the full story. But we do know that the essence of the story is that he gave up the high probability of becoming the archbishop in order to preserve the unity and diversity and breadth of the ACNA. Now to accuse him of protecting someone who is un-Anglican in his words, is un-Christian in his actions and habits, I find that highly offensive. Now, who am I? I'm an Episcopalian. Most of our viewers find that highly offensive. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But and those are wrong words, because I feel very badly even saying that, but I just wish that this could have been handled in a prayerful, godly, loving way, saying, gosh, here's an opportunity for us to see the real Calvin, and then have the little hook saying, if he doesn't cut the mustard, out you go, fella. But don't lead with out you go, fella, because I don't like you. Yeah. Or, you're a bad boy. But take the high road and say, and because this has been done, if it's undone, this would be a violation of the canons that the Archbishop would be making, letting him be liable for removal from office for abuse of office. Instead of taking the high road, he reacted like George did when he saw the press release.
Now, I'm not without sin here, but backing up to
less than me this morning, Kevin.
No. But the realm of Anglican Unscripted works in this way. When you complain about the ACNA, it doesn't go very far. When you complain about the Episcopal Church, it goes pretty far. When I complain about when I complain about the Episcopal Church, crickets. Nobody cares. When I complain about the ACNA, it goes. It's amazing how far up a chain it goes. And so it's a weird paradoxical realm that you and I live in. I think Steve Wood could have done better here. And we shall see how this plays out. Because we've seen other people back up from these types of statements and say, we're sorry. I remember a bishop from Florida doing that recently with your Anglicanism.
And that being able to be fully in God's, that displays the charism of episcopacy. Not the charism of dictatorship or, wow.
Oh, wait, as long as we have anger, let's save it for our next presiding bishop story and move on. So that's the Calvin Robinson story. He is now under the authority of presiding Bishop Ray Sutton of the REC. And as I said before, if it doesn't work here, it was never going to work anywhere. Okay, I think Ray Sutton would be a great example for Calvin of a godly bishop who can hold Calvin accountable and use his great charisms for the great work of the kingdom.
And if I can be so bold as to say to Calvin Robinson, don't waste this opportunity.
Don't wait. Hey, I just got hired by Apple. Don't ruin this one. Okay. So, we shall see what happens. And that's what Anglican Unscripted's for, to keep you posted about what happens in the future. Let's go down here. Now, NGOs is, where non-government organizations get money from the government to conduct policy and other types of industrious things. One of the NGOs you may not have known about has been run by the Episcopal Church. It's called the Episcopal Migration Ministries, and they've existed for 30 or 40 years, helping people who come here legally and illegally find resources in America. And they've been paid by the government to do this.
Paid by the head.
Yes. Paid by the immigrant themselves, and so paid for by how many immigrants there were. So let's talk a little bit about that, because posted on Anglican Ink right now is a letter from presiding Bishop Sean Rowe saying we're not going to do that anymore because they're sending us white people.
Donald Trump's administration ended the USAID funding for refugee programs for review. Some of these programs, Catholic services has been singled out, in particular in the Lutheran services, for aiding and abetting fraud, trafficking, things of that nature. None of these are proven. They're allegations.
Allegations.
Episcopal Migration Ministries is much smaller, but they've developed sort of a niche where they actually sort of, Biden administration had a program to bring in gay and lesbian refugees, things of that nature. And, well, when Trump shut it down, that basically ended the gravy train, and Episcopal Migration Ministries had to lay off most of their staff. Sean Rowe tells us about a week or so ago, the Trump administration said, okay, we're going to bring over refugees from South Africa. And if you want to invite and do stuff, you can help here. And Sean Rowe put out a letter saying they've decided that because of the Episcopal Church's close relations with the Anglican Church in Southern Africa and our racial justice history, we cannot support bringing in white refugees, families from South Africa. And therefore, we're going to wind down completely Episcopal Migration Ministries. This was what made me angry last night. Okay? Now, I had a great deal of fun because the Episcopal Church, just on a slow news day, the new Pope's done, the Episcopal Church just overwhelmed my news and Twitter feed from J.D. Vance, basically calling the Episcopal Church idiots, feckless idiots, or whatever words. And just every commentator from Charlie, every conservative commentator putting out stories saying, what hypocrites these people are. Because evidently South African Boers, the descendants of those who settled in South Africa in the 17th century,
from the Dutch and
from the Dutch and Germans and places like that,
and Britain. So
these people have an inherited sin because their ancestors were leaders of the apartheid movement. Mm-hmm. Their great-grandparents sinned. Therefore, that sin carries it on to the day, and we cannot sully the Episcopal Church's reputation by having white families come to the United States waving American flags, as opposed to unaccompanied young men in their 20s who are either gay or from Muslim-majority countries or from Haiti, who we will dump into small towns and put on social welfare for the rest of their life. This is such blatant racism, moral virtue smugness. I had hopes for Sean Rowe. He was elected as a centrist and a moderate, sort of like Leo. But either he just was looking for a reason to shut down Episcopal, because they said, okay, we're going to shut it down completely by year's end. Mm-hmm. No more government money, which is a good thing. So all he said is that, we really aren't happy with the way the government's going with this. We're just going to close Episcopal Migration Ministry. I said, fine, great. But instead, he had to get in a racist jab, anti-white racism. Such hypocrisy, such moral, gratuitous evil. Here again, I'm trying to be nice.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's not working.
If Anglican TV Ministries gave out trophies for virtue signaling, the 2025 one has just been spoken for. This is the virtual signal of the year, and it's only May. Okay.
I had 3 texts from members of the congregation. Oh, George, I'm just so embarrassed to be an Episcopalian because of what these people do in New York. I don't need this junk. Okay. In the parish life, I don't need to see a denomination I've put 40 years of my life in be such a joke. And it's a joke at this stage.
As I said at the beginning of the program, you and I are in it. That we're part of the news that we have to report. And as a former Episcopalian, this embarrasses me too. I mean, if they were sending over black Africans, you would take them wholeheartedly.
Black South Africans, you'd take them a shot.
Yeah.
And they do.
So, But to single out, well, whatever. Congratulations. If I get a chance to put a trophy together, I will send it to the New York offices. 2nd Avenue, right? Yeah. So
815 2nd Avenue.
Yeah.
And maybe now let me try to dig myself out of the hole.
Okay.
I also got an email from the director of Episcopal Migration Ministries saying more in detail why they did this. But the paragraph about Episcopal Church's history of anti-racism and this and that was word for word what was in Sean Rowe's. So, did she write this, the woman NGO director, and then the presiding bishop's basically staff wrote a letter for him to sign, taking it whole sections out of this and putting it into there? Or did he write it and she took it all out of his? I'm going to assume the glass is half full and he just was unwise, not a vicious racist. Let's take the better path. He was unwise.
I mean,
he didn't think this through.
That's the problem with how we deal with racism since 1970. Racism and bias exist, absolutely. There's no denying that on some level and in some respects it exists. The solution to racism cannot be racism.
Kevin, our country is so different. You wonder why our generation, my kids, your kids are so woke on the race topic. It's disturbing. I was actually up last night. I couldn't sleep because I was so mad, and I turned on the TV and I watched an episode of Sanford and Son.
Oh my gosh.
And Fred Sanford, Lamont's arrested for a speeding ticket by a white policeman, and he goes to court, and Fred Sanford stands up to represent his son, and he used the N-word 5 or 6 times. He said, "Hey, man, this could be a Tarzan movie set." I mean, there's in other words, and everybody's laughing. Black, white, yellow, brown, purple, pink. Mm-hmm. Archie Bunker could not be, Red Fox could not be on TV today. Archie Bunker couldn't be on TV today.
Seinfeld can't be on TV. Friends can't be. I mean, you just go back 12 years, those series can't be on TV.
So maybe we just have the presiding bishop, the times, and we deserve just.
I have a great solution
you haven't bleeped me yet. I mean, it's so good, Kevin.
Well, we prayed before the episode that we would lose our unjust anger and have only holy anger. I'm assuming you're not being bleeped because that prayer has been answered.
I just say Richard Pryor, if he were alive today, would probably be in prison.
Unemployed for sure.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my.
I love that guy. Oh, well. All right, so let's move on to story number 5. How much time? We may have just meandered past the end of the episode. Who knows? Let me check the time here. We are 48 minutes in, and we are at story 5. And
we can do it, Kevin. We can do it.
Thabo Makgoba asked New York Episcopalians to lobby the U.S. government to restore USAID funds for South Africa. They need money for HIV/AIDS funds and all other monies to return ASAP. He asked New York Episcopalians, well, that's the Episcopal Church, George.
Well, Thabo, you wasted your trip. This happened the beginning of May, and I can tell you right now, there is no chance in hell that a New York Episcopalian's voice, Sean Rowe, will in any way change U.S. policy on South Africa at this stage. Sean, you just stuck a knife into Thabo. He spent $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to come up, spend a week in New York, try to get money. The spigot opened up again. It wasn't likely to happen. Now it ain't going to happen. I'm sorry.
Now, there's been some journal stories going around about who is attending our churches in today's world. Are they conservative? Are they liberal? Are they middle of the road? And some people have been crunching the numbers. clearly the leadership of the mainline denominational churches tend and skew a little towards the liberal side.
A lot towards the liberal side.
No,
Episcopal Church.
Here, little. Okay. Little. Okay, a little. And so, but the congregants who attended recently, certainly in the last 18, 20, 22 years, seem to be more leaning conservative. Am I reading these articles right? Am I understanding
Ryan
what I mean?
Berge, or Berg, B-U-R-G-E, I've never heard his name said. I've only read his articles. Did statistical analyses, and the mainline Protestant tradition, everybody likes to say liberal Protestants.
Sure.
No, it's not true. Episcopal Church, Lutherans, Presbyterians, Methodists, United Church of Christ, everybody thinks, oh, well, they're all raving loonies. They have been getting more politically conservative since the McCain election against Obama, such that this last election, the mainline Protestants went 60-40 for Donald Trump. And you cannot call the mainline churches liberal, the members. Its leaders, yes, very liberal. And the only outlier to this is the Episcopal Church, which instead of being 60-40 Trump-Obama is a Trump non-Trump, is the other way around. And the only reason for that is of course, the secession of the ACNA, because they weren't included in that. And I can tell you today, my congregation, I don't want to say tends, is, is conservative politically. Our bishop is middle of the road politically, and you get up to New York, they're all left-wing Looney Tunes. But the stereotypes, I think one of the funniest things I saw is that Hispanic males are now even more conservative than white males on these issues.
That's true. I mean, we're seeing certainly in the UK, younger generation of 15 to 25-year-old white males going conservative, attending churches more. It's amazing. We've seen this here in America now for 6 or 7 years. There is a tide turning. I have seen the tide also within the ACNA as to moderate to liberal bishops serving moderate to very conservative churches. In my travels around the country, I've attended moderate churches and conservative churches. I did one liberal church. I've not attended that many liberal churches. I did find one. I'm not going to tell you where it is. This is not a judgmental game. This is an informational game. But in my travels, I did find one liberal church. And the tide of who left the Episcopal Church into the ACNA were the conservatives or the moderates, even here in the DC area. So,
well, in Citrus County, Florida, there may be a liberal, but he goes to the Unitarian Church, if there is one. This county went like 85, 90% for Donald Trump last election, so it's hard to find.
You never know. Okay. How many? Are we going to skip here? Let's skip to 9. Because
let's do Ford and. Okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, let's do 9. Because 9's going to take a while, and we're already up to, the audience is looking at their clocks right now, somewhere in the 52 minutes. And it's going to take 8 minutes to do 9.
Well, can I just have a little commercial?
Sure, go ahead.
Friends, next episode, friends, come hear about Ford and Faith's assembly in London this past week.
Yeah.
About the update on women clergy in the Anglican Communion. Botswana ordained some deacons. And a study that found that clergy are bad business risks.
Surprise.
Surprise, 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 Gomer Pyle.
Story number 9, the final story for today's episode. Canterbury election process is screwed up. You only have a period. That should be an exclamation point. As we just saw over in the Vatican, it does not take a lot to get elected. You show up, you get all the cardinals together, you give them some coffee, you feed them breakfast, you close the doors, and you start black paper, white paper. What's it going to be here? We can go home early. I don't care if you even get that guy Robert, whatever. We can get Bob.
Let's ask Bob.
We elect Bob. We're out of here today. Okay. So
and also we like to think there's this thing called the Holy Spirit that's at work. That drives this machine.
The Diocese of Canterbury actually has a process for an empty vacant seat, and let's talk about that because this is all news to everybody, including them.
Dioceses in England have a vacancy in C committee that is set up with members who, should a bishop retire, resign, or die, they can begin the process to elect a new bishop. Canterbury has one. Justin Welby let this thing sort of wither on the vine. Even though it was likely he was going to retire in a year or two, he took early retirement because of the whole abuse John Smythe scandal. He was still going to go within a year or two anyway because he was going to time out. But he let this thing he didn't keep it up to date. So he leaves. And the acting bishop in Canterbury, Rose Hudson Wilkes, the very able bishop, I'm being sarcastic, finds, oh my God, I need to have a working C vacancy in C committee. And so they begin by first attempting to fill the position by appointing them, or co-opting members, as they like to call. Well, if one thing, the Church of England's got a lot of canon lawyers and say, sorry, can't do that. That's invalid. So they said, okay, we'll do it again. And so in a second attempt to run an election was ruled invalid for failing to follow the correct procedure. And then a third election will now be held, but they've said no new nominations will be permitted. Andrew, sorry, Andrew. He's gone into great detail on Andrew Goddard. Andrew Goddard has gone into great detail about this screw up, but it's at this stage, nobody trusts the Canterbury process for electing people. They've tried to put in safe people. They've tried to say, we have to have so many women, so many this, so many that, so many Welsh lesbians in wheelchairs, for Canterbury. That's going to take a year. And what is noticeably absent is the Holy Spirit in any of this. And if the Catholics could do it in 2 weeks,
2 days.
Why can't the Anglicans? No, 2 weeks from death.
Yeah.
New Pope. It'll be a year at least. It's not going to be a few more weeks. It's the committee process will lead to the death of the Church of England, I believe, eventually.
Well, I remember
committees will be its death.
I remember back in the 90s, we had an opening at our church for a new rector. And just the process of the parish profile and asking everybody and their child and their cousin and their relatives who never visited what they thought the perfect rector would be was just, it's insane. And we're watching Canterbury and certainly the UK go through that. Yeah.
We mentioned at the start that the Church of England put out a press release saying we had 11,000 submissions or talked to 11,000 people on what the next archbishop should be. And we talked to Christians and non-Christians. Oh, that's really nice. What do the Muslims think, or the Hindus or the atheists?
Yeah.
We talked to Anglicans and non-Anglicans. Well, we always need to know what the Catholics.
So they talk to the tech?
And I'm sure they asked Gavin Ashton, and Gavin's response would be, give back the buildings.
That's right.
That you stole 600 years ago. That would have been a helpful answer.
Yes.
And I'm starting my 12th or 13th year. I've been here a long time. Mm-hmm. I went through the process, and they went through everything you described. I never read the parish profile. Mm-hmm. I had my wife read it. She told me what I should know. But I basically prayed and said, Lord, is this where I should be? And when I went into all the different interviews and everything, I didn't read any of the parish profile stuff. They're looking for somebody to do this, somebody to do that. I just said, I'm going to be honest with who I am and allow the Spirit to guide. And it just went click, 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 click. And I have to say, I do feel that the Spirit led me, Holy Spirit of God led me to this place. And it's keeping me here to live out my ministry with these wonderful people. Sometimes you can just get so bureaucratized and so hidebound. Now, it did piss off the head of the search committee when I told her after it was done, I never read any of this stuff. That wasn't a smart thing to do. I should have just said, well, Susan told me what I needed to know.
You just say, it changed my life. All that work you put into it changed my life. Life-changing.
Now, so, Kevin, I have said that 2 pride-siding bishops and archbishops had been less than intelligent in how they do things. And what do we end the show with? George being a silly ass. And not doing things he should be doing. So it all comes around in the end.
It all comes. Absolutely. We're not, George and Kevin are not at a higher plane in all of this. We are human. We are sinful. But by the mercy of God, do we even exist? The fact that we have an influence in the kingdom is beyond reason. Okay. What is God thinking putting Kevin and George on the internet? I don't know. But I've learned not to question too much of that because the bounty and the fruits that we get to witness happening are just amazing because we are in it. The news is not just something we read, it's something that we participate in. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I have an Indian corruption story. I guess we don't have time.
No, we don't have time.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 914 of Anglican Unscripted.